All right, hi everyone. I'm the Philosophy Bro. So I'm gonna start a new series on the anarchist, the violent anarchist, Peter Gelderloos's book called "How Nonviolence Protects the State," and this is basically his radical, controversial maxim in one particular part of the book, in which he is saying, "Revolt against your government and capitalist rulers because they're at war with us," as you see. So I think this is really interesting, even though obviously I disagree with it. And I'm going to get into what he describes as some of his reasons, and we'll see if he has any if there's any sound logic behind what he is saying. All right, so Peter Gelderloos was like this whole book, How Nonviolence Protects the State, is like basically him disagreeing with other anarchists. And I've mentioned before, right, that anarchists disagree about whether you should have a philosophy of violence or nonviolence against the state. And uh, a lot of the classic anarchists, as I've explained before, are very different from a lot of modern anarchists, especially like the libertarian, extreme libertarian style anarcho capitalists that you see on YouTube. And what the one way in which the classic anarchists are different from especially these anarcho capitalists is that not only are these classic anarchists like Peter Gelderloos and Bakunin, the classic Russian anarchists like Bakunin and Kropotkin and Emma Goldman, but they like basically they were advocating for violent revolution against the state, and they like a lot of anarchists nowadays would try to be not necessarily pacifists, but they don't preach violence against the state. And another way in which these classic violent Russian anarchists is that they were they were disillusioned socialists, or in some cases even communists, and turned into anarcho-communists. So these classic anarchists like Peter Gelderloos and Bakunin, Kropotkin, Emma Goldman, and certainly others, they were so they were not only anti-state, but they were anti-capitalist too. So this is why he's saying advocating for literally violent revolution against the government and against capitalists and corporations. So like I've said before, even though I personally am not an anarchist, I think any sort of radical political philosophy like this, anarchism or anarcho-capitalism or, communism or fascism or Nazism or anything like that, extreme right, extreme libertarianism, extreme leftism, I think any of these political philosophies take things too far. But I do appreciate, like I've said before, I do appreciate the consistency of these classic anarchists like Peter Gelderloos in being not only, like I said, not only anti-government but also anti-capitalist. So they're like extreme anarchists in a way, but also extreme anti-capitalists, which I think is really interesting. And like I was saying, Peter Gelderloos is literally advocating for violent revolution against our government and capitalist rulers, because he claims that capitalism and the government are literally at war with the people. So, like, he's basically saying what a lot of lefties say about capital, both what a lot of lefties say about capitalism, which is that basically capitalism and corporations are at war with us and they're trying to oppress the people and stuff like that, which again I think is an oversimplification, and you're looking at only the cons of capitalism and not the pros. But, and like I said, not only are anarchists like that, they're also like anarchists in the way that we imagine the in the way that we imagine the thoughts of anarchists, just being totally anti-government, anything government is bad, but they're also anything to do with capitalism is bad. And like I was saying, I think this is very interesting and controversial in terms of Peter Gelderloos's book, How Nonviolence Protects the State, because he's advocating for specifically violent revolution against the state. And I can see how, like I said, I don't believe capitalism and the state are actually at war with us. And like I said about capitalism, there are pros and cons to capitalism, which is why I disagree rather with anti-capitalists. But similarly, in my opinion, there are pros and cons to government too. And I think probably most people agree with me that there are both pros and cons to government and pros and cons to capitalism. So yeah, there are positive aspects of capitalism that these anarchists aren't, in my opinion, not taking seriously. And then also in terms of government, I agree with being both skeptical of capitalism and government, but I think that you're just being too cynical and not realistic considering the actual advantages of government and capitalism. Like, for like, there are financial advantages to free market capitalism, creating these corporations that everyone participates in, regardless of how much we complain about them. Like, well, not everyone, but most people use Twitter and Amazon and Facebook and all of these massive corporations that even anti-capitalists talk about. And then also anti-government people. I mean, they just get a lot, especially anarcho-capitalists, they just get a lot about economics wrong. And literally a lot of these Austrian anarchists who these anarcho-capitalists reference all the time, they say themselves that they're laissez-faire capitalists, but like classical neoliberals in some ways. And they say themselves, some of them, that their entire political philosophy does not rely on empirical economic data. And one of the most famous libertarians, Ron Paul, talks about this too. And I read one of his books recently, and I'm going to talk about that. And uh, basically, he and other libertarians and anarcho-capitalists argue that you should actually just have a moral philosophical basis for how the free market should work rather than one based on empirical economic data. So they're literally preaching for an anti-scientific approach to economics. Now, you all know that I love philosophy, of course, but in situations in which philosophy is not the best realm through which you should view that situation, then you should you should prioritize other methods over philosophy. Like in economics, for example, you should just follow empirical economic data, which does not bear out the claims of anarcho-capitalism or extreme libertarianism or the Austrian economists at all. So anyway, the point is that I think it's interesting that Peter Gelderloos is advocating for specifically violent revolution against specifically both the state and capitalism. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you like literally a communist or an extreme socialist or a Marxist of some kind? Are you a total anarchist? Are you against just the state or just capitalism? Are you against both? Or do you think that there are pros and cons to capitalism in the state, or one is only good and one is only bad, like capitalism is only bad and the state is only good, for example, the opposite of anarcho-capitalists, like basically communists? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I think this is interesting, even though I disagree with Peter Gelderloos's conclusions, as often happens in terms of my opinions on political philosophy of various kinds. And yeah, I'm the Philosophy Bro. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash the like button, molest it, make sweet love to it, elbow drop it, whatever you want to do, as long as you press it. Subscribe to the channel. A lot of people watch the videos without subscribing, so please do that. It's free and easy. And like I always say, oh yeah, of course, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Going to continue this series. Going to come out with another clip tomorrow. I don't remember which one it is, but check that out too. And I have another video coming up on, I forget which one I'm doing next, but I'm going to continue one of my book series on philosophy. And yeah, so check out all those upcoming stuff and past things. And thanks again, everyone. Most importantly, like I always say, remember this: the funk cures all, and group is in the heart, and philosophy is awesome. It's fascinating to investigate different political philosophies, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, and take them seriously and actually investigate them and read books about their opinions. All right. Thanks everyone for watching again, and I'm the Philosophy Bro. Adios until next time.